My father stood for three things: education, service to others, and justice. His lifelong career of political activism has left us with a powerful legacy.
Bert Corona was born in El Paso, Texas in 1918 during the deadly Spanish influenza. Bert's father served as a colonel with the legendary Pancho Villa, protecting the rights of Mexico's poor. And when Bert's parents were married, Pancho Villa made a special trip to be there. At an early age, Bert learns that his father was assassinated in Mexico, and a year later, Pancho Villa himself is assassinated.
You just had to have known that with all that Mexican revolutionary passion in his father, that my dad would be destined to be some kind of hellraiser himself.
While in 5th grade, Mexican-American students were subject to expulsion for questioning their teachers about Mexican history. In protest, they refused to go to school.
He was only 10 years old and taking part in probably the first ever student strike, and the school gave in and apologized.
The Great Depression made an unforgettable impression on the young mind of Bert Corona.
During the Great Depression, people were extremely anti-immigrant, anti-Mexican, because they thought that Mexicans were taking American jobs. As a result, hundreds of thousands of Mexicans were deported, whether they were citizens or not. And I think that this injustice was the catalyst that made my dad devote his life to helping others.
After the Great Depression, Bert, on a scholarship, attends the University of Southern California, majoring in law. He was one of only 4 Mexican Americans in the USC student body. While attending school, Bert becomes involved with the unions, where he would help to organize workers in low-paying jobs. When he is offered a job as a union organizer for the CIO, he decides to abandon his college and go to work on behalf of low-paid workers. Bert also becomes involved with the Mexican-American movement, which purpose was to improve social, educational, and economic conditions among Mexican Americans. Many people don't know that the coined phrase Mexican American came out of this movement. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor during World War II, Bert Corona decides to join the Army Air Corps, eventually becoming a paratrooper and demolition specialist. However, Corona's military career was terminated after the discovery of his past affiliations with unions. In 1942, mass hysteria hit Los Angeles when the body of Jose Diaz was found in the Sleepy Lagoon Reservoir. 12 men from 2 rival gangs were convicted of the murder, even though there was no concrete evidence. Bert and a few other community leaders formed the Sleepy Lagoon Defense Committee to exonerate the indicted youths. 2 years later, the case was appealed and reversed. By 1948, Bert Corona joins the community service organization which focused on voter registration and getting Mexicans to become politically involved. In 1949, this organization spearheaded the movement that elected the first Mexican-American, Edward Roybal, to the LA City Council. In the 50s, Bert Corona becomes a key organizer for the Asociación Nacional Mexico-Americana, one of the most progressive unions at that time who defended the Mexican field workers. In the 60s, Bert Corona is one of the founders of the Mexican-American Political Association, dedicated to political freedom and representation of the Mexican and Hispanic people of the United States. Bert Corona had known Cesar Chavez since the 50s, and when there was talk of organizing a strike against the grape growers, it was Bert and his organization MAPA, that helped organize the workers, collected food for the strikers, and worked the picket lines. This strike inspired a nation and Cesar Chavez referred to Bert Corona as his mentor. Because of Robert Kennedy's commitment to the farm workers' struggle, Bert Corona was deeply involved with his campaign for the presidency. In his last speech, minutes before he was assassinated, Bobby Kennedy said this.
I want to thank Cesar Chavez and Bert Corona, who also worked with him, and all of those Mexican Americans who were such supporters of mine.
Another of Bert's accomplishments was La Hermandad Nacional Mexicana, which he helped found. The Hermandad showed Mexicans in the United States how to organize to achieve better working conditions and better housing. Bert Corona's Hermandad proved that undocumented workers could unite and win victories in the courts and in the fields. For 18 years, Bert taught Chicano studies at various colleges and universities.
He had a PhD in the streets, not a formal one, but to us a more important one. He knew the plight of the Mexican people, he knew immigration, and he knew what we needed to succeed, and that he not only taught, but I think he also encouraged people to pursue their careers and to strive and try to be whatever they desire to be.
Bert was not only teaching at universities, but teaching us about injustices outside on the streets.
But I was here on that day on August 29, 1970, when the police and sheriff's officers came down and beat up and assaulted a peaceful rally to protest the unequal dying of Mexican youth in the war in Vietnam. The police began to break in through there in formation with batons and guns. And so the kids were defending themselves with these little sticks that they had the signs on. The police just beat up on the children, on anybody that got in their way. And we had priests, we had pastors, we had women, teachers from many of the schools. Consequently, we had 5 people killed that day.
Bert Corona fought those who used the term illegal aliens in referring to the undocumented. He is credited with eliminating this term in publications. Bert Corona dedicated his life to fighting injustices for his people. Nobody at that time could organize and mobilize a community to a cause like Bert Corona.
Certainly touched my heart is because at the point where probably he was 3 months before he died, he still at the front of the issues, He never sit down in the back seat. He was in the front fighting along with the unions for immigration reform, for other causes. And even if he was very, very sick, he was in a wheelchair, he stand up and made his points.
Bert Corona died of health complications on January 15, 2001, the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., whom Corona also fought alongside with. And today, 2 institutions carry his name to honor him. The Bert Corona Leadership Institute promotes civic participation, education, and economic advancement among youth from farm worker and underserved communities. The Bert Corona Charter Middle School prepares low-income students for academic success in high school, as well as to be responsible and active participants in their community.
I remember my dad taking me to many immigrants' rights protests, and I remember watching his humanitarian spirit and his speeches and the way he performed them. And that really influenced me to become an immigration lawyer myself and just help out the cause of immigrants, because I know deep down inside that would have made my dad really proud and happy.
When my dad was asked what his message to young people would be, he mentioned 3 things. The first was being willing to work with a wide variety of people, regardless of differences in personality, organization, or politics. The second was stubbornness in the pursuit of your goals. And the third was knowing what you're committed to. In my dad's view, if a young person developed those 3 qualities, they could find their niche, they could organize others in collective action, and develop themselves as leaders.
So somewhere along the line, we will be like Europe, where where people who live in Europe always seem to know 2 or 3 or 4 languages, and they're familiar with the cultures of each other's countries, and they seem to be able to get along well. I think that that's what we've got to strive for.
Bert Corona was an activist who dedicated his life to achieving social and economic justice for underserved immigrant communities in California and across the nation. He taught us by example to participate in social change and to be a voice for the voiceless. On behalf of the Board of Directors and the staff of the United States Leadership Institute and the 28th National Conference of the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute, we salute you.